A little bit about me. So I started, well, I've always been a creative at heart, I believe, and I thank my mum for that. She's a designer, so I've been very lucky to have that sort of insight from a young age. But I always did sort of art, but then maths and chemistry as well. So I had sort of both sides of the brain. But because of that, I realized how differently both subjects were treated in the education system. And I was always slightly aware that the arts were seen as a little bit inferior, and there was never as much awareness about the creative careers that are out there and sort of what the wonderful world of possibilities you can tap into. And so part of why I'm here is to sort of really hope I can bridge that gap and sort of show you guys what some possibilities are and help you along with my journey a little bit. So started doing maths, chemistry, and art A level, but then went on to study graphic design and communication at the University of Leeds. And I would say here is where I really realized how much I loved sort of the whole researching part of forming ideas and how you can translate the findings you have into sort of fully fledged concepts. And I also did a year in industry, which is something I would recommend to anyone who has the possibility to do so. It's a great sort of way to get into the industry, try something out, see if it fits, but also it gives you some experience already to put under your belts. When you do graduate, you have something to sort of be like, I did this, I learned this, and sort of take it forward. And then something else I also did sort of alongside my degree was freelance work. And again, if you have the capacity and the options, I would always recommend doing this too, as this is where you can really sort of start to explore what ticks your fancy, like what you really do enjoy, and sort of push the boat out a little bit. But talking about where I am now, so once I graduated, I had a summer of internships. I think I'm not sure everyone has a similar experience and they're trying to break into the industry. And I had the opportunity to do a 2-week internship at a company called Grand Visual. Now, from the website, I could see they were a creative out-of-home advertising studio, but I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know much about the advertising industry. I didn't know any of the niches within that. But you never turn down experience. So obviously, I go along, I pop down to London, and 3 days in, I realized how much I love it. And they were also lucky enough to like me too. And so they offered me a job as a designer in their studio. And however fun this was, after about 6 months, I really realized that I wanted to be more at the forefront of the design process, so sort of forming the ideas rather than just making them come to life and designing them. And I was very fortunate that at that similar time when I had this epiphany, a new job opportunity arose to do just that. And so I applied. I moved internally, so staying at the same company, and then here I am 1 year later as a junior creative strategist, where I'm sort of the main creative lead on a few accounts, but my main one is the PepsiCo account. That's kind of like a little insight into my journey, a very speedy tour through.
Love that.
Yeah.
So you actually you're still at the first company
Yeah.
after uni.
Yeah, so I just sort of they're very lucky, and they sort of the job was an interior internal move. So sort of now I know all ends of the company. I've done the back of house and the front of house, which was a really fun
Amazing.
journey. Yeah,
Well, thank you so much, Annabelle. Do you want to just stop sharing your screen and then everyone can see
of course.
um
Do you
they
want
can
me
see.
to flick through some of the examples of what we
Oh
do?
yes. Oh sorry, sorry. I thought you were
Or I
yeah.
can save that for afterwards, whatever flows best.
No, let's do those first. Yeah.
Um, I just thought it'd be good to sort of explain a little bit about what out-of-home advertising is as well. So it's kind of like bold ideas that you have, but they're the real outcomes. They're the outcomes that exist not on your phone or on the TV, but they're the ones that you see in real life. They're tangible, you can interact with them. And so this is sort of literally the most basic description is it's advertising that reaches consumers outside of their home, hence out of home. And why this is really good is because we drive bold impact. So we want to get your brands noticed from the get-go. When you're down the street, what is different to normal? We want to garner that attention, which then engages the audience, increases longer dwell time with your brand, which then forms the connection, especially if there's sampling or there's interactivity. And then ultimately, yes, we are designed for real life, but in this day and age, it's now how can it be shareable online? It's like a full circle. So then it goes back online, and we want to try and drive things that go viral, go trending, and sort of really increase that brand awareness on a different platform. And I'll flick through some examples. I know we're kind of short on time here, and I could yap all day about this because I do love it so much. But one of my favorite examples is this Dracula one here, which I think is a really fun execution that shows how you can use sort of two parts to a creative for a reveal, and you can tap into things that are like as famous as Dracula in such a simple way, using like stakes to sort of represent vampire by day. But then you can use shadow art to sort of really bring him to life by night, and you get this sort of creative that develops throughout the day. It's a great
That's
example.
amazing. I love that.
It's one of my favorites. And then another brand who unexpectedly, I think, to a lot of people, but they really love to play in this sort of area is Specsavers because they have this wonderful creative platform. I should have gone to Specsavers. Um, and they challenged us to sort of take this into out of home and be like, how can you make this come to life? So we took one of our most standard creative like sort of formats of a billboard, which for most people they'll be able to sort of click quite easily, paste a creative up and thought, how can we twist that to suit this campaign? And so you can see here, there's a couple of little errors that went wrong, which really sort of tap into the message.
That's hilarious. I love the Specsavers adverts.
They're great. They're such a fun brand to work with, which is another example of them here. Is in the very same campaign. They were like, how can we make this more of a surprise and delight moment in sort of a physical way? And so we created this sort of staged this whole fake build here, with someone clearly parking in the wrong spot and getting trapped, and turned the van itself into sort of the billboard with the very subtle branding. And this went utterly viral because everyone thought it was a genuine error. Ended up on This Morning, which was great.
That's exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
Success.
This is another one for Waitrose. It sort of just shows how simple the creative can be when the messaging is so great. So we literally turned our out-of-home platforms into skewers, into kebabs, sorry, because we put a skewer through it. Um, a very simple sampling one for McDonald's because everyone loves free food. So how can we sort of tap into that? Another version of sampling where we sort of use digital, really fun digital creatives. So we got Gary Lineker himself to come to our studio, put him in a box and got him to act out certain interactions. And the sort of call to action here was if you tweeted Walkers, you get a packet of crisps. So we had filmed him getting a tweet on his phone, having a little like oh moment because of who he is. And then he reached into the box he sat on and then fed a packet of crisps down to the bottom of the screen in the animation, but then a real physical packet popped out the bottom.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's
then
pretty cool.
two more, and then we're running out of time. But we got the billboard here. So this was in response to the Brit Awards a couple of years ago when there was a bit of backlash about them not sort of showcasing minority voices. And so Budweiser thought, how could they react to this? And we turned very close to the Brit Awards themselves, one of their billboards into an actual stage themselves to showcase sort of minority voices and female artists. And that was a really cool project that we worked on.
Love that.
And then finally, just because it's adorable, we recently got the challenge from O2 to be like, how can we show how far our broadband reaches? And so we thought, let's turn sheep into billboards, and we put little coats on them. And these sheep were in the very far northern bits of Scotland, just to show quite how far the reach was.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So this sort of it shows like how far the ideas can go, and it's a really really fun creative field to be in. But yeah,
I
that's
mean,
just I
wow,
thought it'd be really
what an
sort of
amazing, yeah, what amazing job and career. And I feel like everyone is, yeah, like in awe of what you guys do. Um, so tell us, like, how does that actually work? Like, so say the Specsavers
yeah.
campaign, like, how does that work from kind of idea to reality?
So we get the brief from Specsavers, and then we got a team of about six of us. We call a brainstorm. We're like, right, guys, everyone in the room, and we'll sit for about probably an hour, and we'll sort of really deep dive and try and get up some ideas, and then we hopefully land on probably a selection of five that we present back to the client. They would then choose their favorite, and then once that's kind of that process, then sort of takes the next level where we really fine tune into it how that would come to life. And then we pass over to our production team, who we work very closely with, and they're the ones that actually do all the nitty-gritties and sort of make it really come to life. But it's a very collaborative process from like start to finish.
Amazing. And what about like entry level? So obviously, people watching today, like, how can they actually start?
Yeah.
Like, how did you actually get that first job or internship?
Yeah, so I was very lucky that I just saw it pop up on, well, I'm sure as everyone else here, that you are on all the platforms, you are seeing it everywhere. And I just sort of saw it pop up, and we have a really great sort of foundation of like internships and work placements available. And so I think I had to go for an interview and then sort of started, and they sort of take you in and then they show you the ropes of whichever team you're placed in. You get like a say in where you want to go depending on what area you're interested in. So I went in as a designer, but you could go in as a production, or there's the sort of the wider company where there's more logistical sort of roles, as well as like so planning or finance or law. Like there's so many different ways you can enter the creative industry. But yeah, so mine was sort of through the internship. I saw it online, I just applied, and it was all by luck. I just thought any experience, I'll take it.
Yeah. And how do you think you stood out like in the application form? Like what were you doing stuff on the side? Like did you have a portfolio?
Yeah, I had a portfolio, and I think that, I mean, it's not news to everyone, but that really does help. And I'd done a few portfolio reviews that you could sort of sign up to when online for like Creative Lives in Progress and a couple of platforms like that. And they would be super, super insightful because they're giving you face time with industry, like creative industry professionals who just feedback slightly on your portfolio. And that helped me really refine and tweak it, but also feel confident in it. And I think, as naff as it might sound, if you sort of speak with confidence and you show you're passionate, that really does just come through. And that's feedback that I was fortunate enough to receive through a few different internships. Is like we could just feel your like excitement about the work you do, and that really sort of I think cut through.
Is there anything that you would do now, like, you know, if you were 16, 17,
Mhm.
what kind of things would you be doing to add to your portfolio?
I think I would start. So I was fortunate enough as well to have COVID. That sort of put pause on everything. So I had a lot of free time to sort of really explore things. And I'd set myself little challenges like, okay, I want to do this brief. And I'd create like a whole little like portfolio thing around it. And I think when you're quite young and you've not got access to like live briefs, or you've not got insight into things, try and like hone in what you're really passionate about and then set your own briefs that you can be
Love
really
that.
sort of
Yeah.
passionate about. And then you get a chance to sort of show work that you love because you've come up with a brief that really you're passionate about, but also it's what the kind of work you want to do. And then you're creating this portfolio that is like the epitome of like, if you had your dream job, this is the kind of style of work you would do. And that's a really good way of just like building it out when you haven't got like years and years of experience behind you to sort of build a natural portfolio.
Yeah. No, I love that. You can pretend your friend is like a client, you know.
Yeah. Even sit
And
down, have them brief you, like do the whole
yeah.
thing.
And you obviously started in graphic design, but then
Yeah.
now you're doing, you know, something a little bit different, but within the advertising industry. So you don't have to start where you want to end up.
No, and I think that's like a common misconception as well that puts a lot of pressure on you when you're younger, is like making decisions that are like meant for your whole life. And you're like, oh wow, but I'm not sure, I'm not sure. And I remember at uni, there was one moment I was sat in my kitchen with my flatmate who was also on my course. And we both were going like, are we designers or are we strategists? And we were like really like overwhelmed with having to make this like massive decision. And I was like, what do we do? And we both stuck to being designers. And then now she's also on my team. So it's been 3 years later, and she applied for a job at my company, and she's back with me. And we're both doing strategy. And it's sort of like, wow, we pivoted, but it was natural to our journey. So I think my advice would be is stick with what you are enjoying at the time, and that will take you where you need to be. Don't put too much pressure on making like definitive decisions. So at like a point when you haven't got a huge amount of experience to like inform those decisions, because you
Yeah,
learn so much when you're on the job.
love that. No, that's such a good piece of advice. And then what about some of the challenges like that you face? What was like one of the hardest things that you experienced
Mhm.
when you were trying to get that first job?
I think it's the overwhelming amount of jobs out there, and then the amount of rejection ultimately. Like, it is a quite a brutal process, and it's sort of having to pick yourself up and go again so many times. That can really get you down because you can be as confident in your portfolio and like you speak to some people and they're like, you're great, but then you'll speak to some other people and you're just not the right fit. And it's hard not to take that personally.
Mm.
So I think the job application process is very character building, as what
Yeah.
I'd say.
No, Def. So you have had a lot of rejection as
Yeah.
well.
When I was applying for my year in industry, I think I applied to 48 places before getting nothing and
Yeah.
then giving up, being like, oh no, and then like classic, the stars align and a week later something comes through. And I think it's part of the journey. I feel like it's a metaphor for all of life, isn't it? Like you got to go through the hard times to really sort of define yourself and keep going.
Yeah.
Um,
No, yeah, 100%. I think that's it. Everyone has experienced rejection and nothing is easy as it sounds.
no,
Even
never.
with your career journey, do you know what I mean? It sounds amazing, but I'm sure it was challenging
Oh
at
yeah,
times.
definitely.
And then time is nearly up, but if anyone does have any questions for Annabelle, do let us know. Um, but in terms of the advertising industry, there's obviously lots of different agencies.
Yes.
So would you recommend smaller agencies versus, these large, huge agencies, or is there any strategy that young people could take in terms of applying?
I think something I've always thought is the best approach when you're getting your foot in the door is go for those slightly smaller agencies so you get more responsibility and you get a bigger insight and you're not just a small cog in a massive machine, but actually you're quite like a fundamental cog. And I think that really means that you grow a lot quicker. Whereas if you're going, I've had a couple of friends who have gone to like really big, amazing opportunity, big famous agencies, but they're bottom of the chain, and there's not as much opportunity for them to sort of get out of their comfort zone and try new things. So I think I would always,
Mm.
and it's easier as well to slightly get into those smaller ones in essence as well. So
Yeah.
less competition. So I'd almost say it's a win-win situation. Like go for the slightly smaller ones, learn more, and then you can always move across the big ones if that's what you want later on.
I was really surprised how many agencies there are.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize, yeah, there are loads, hundreds all over the UK as well, not just in London.
Yeah.
So I definitely, do your research. And a lot of these smaller agencies don't even advertise on, all of these big platforms. So even just getting in touch with these smaller agencies to say, you're there, you're interested, it is kind of right time, right place, isn't it?
Definitely. And I think that's a really great point is like just put feelers out. Always just drop an email on LinkedIn, sorry, an email or message on LinkedIn. You never know like what's going to happen. And as you rightly said, like they don't present always what you think your vision's going to be. Like when I come, don't hate me, but when I first looked at the website of my current company, I was like, not sure about these guys. Like they didn't match the vision I had for myself when I was like, I want to be in one of these amazing creative agencies. But then it's very different. Like then there's a media agency in the essence. But once you're in put in the door, you realize how creative it is and how much fun it was. So
Yeah.
always just put feelers out if you don't know what's around the corner.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Annabelle.
Yeah,
Time is up. I know it's gone so quickly.
very quickly.
But yes, really, really thank you. Obviously, everyone can kind of connect with you on LinkedIn if they want.
Yes, please do, guys. Any questions, more than happy to help. And we do have work experience, like set up and internships. So more than happy to put you into contact with the right people if you're interested.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Annabelle, again.